to Coffee with the Pastor. I'm Pastor John Woodin, and this is a ministry of Hollywood Faith Christian Center in beautiful Hollywood, Florida. We welcome you this morning. God bless you. And today we're going to start in Mark chapter 10. But I want to remind you, yesterday we looked at the man at the pool of Bethesda and his perpetual victimhood, and the fact that Jesus warned him, even after he was healed, not to fall back into his victimhood, that poor me, I've got a terrible life. You know, Jesus said, walk in great abundance. I came to give you life, and life abundantly. Mark chapter 10, we see in contrast to this, blind Bartimaeus. In Mark 10, we see Jesus is walking outside of Jericho, and Bartimaeus hears the crowd, and he's a blind man, and he's like, what's going on? And Jesus is coming, and he starts screaming for Jesus to notice him. And Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And the crowd, of course, you know, you can never really trust the crowd. The crowd says, shh, quiet, be quiet, don't disturb the master. But Bartimaeus knows that if I don't get in front of Jesus, this is my one and only shot at this, I'm going to scream until I get his attention. And he continues hollering to the point where Jesus stops and calls him over. So the crowd, of course, says, oh, he's calling you, go quickly. And he goes over to Jesus. And Jesus asks him when he gets in front of him, what do you want me to do for you? Now, obviously, Bartimaeus had to be led over to where Jesus was because he's blind. And you would think that Jesus would, you know what's wrong with me. You can see that I'm a blind man. But Bartimaeus doesn't give him a story. He doesn't give him an excuse. He says, Rabboni, that I may receive my sight. Well, that's really not a literal translation. The literal translation means I want to look up. And in other words, I want to see up into the heavens. I want to see not only naturally, but also spiritually. And Jesus tells him, go your way, your faith has made you sozo, which means well, but it's more than well. It means whole. It means saved. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus. Now, some of your Bibles say in the way. And some of your Bibles will also say on the road. But in the way is the right answer, because in the way means like what they called followers of Jesus in the first century were the way. The Christianity, the concept of being a Christian or a little Christ was a cut put together by the Romans, like a mocking. They said they were little Christ, little Christians, but they called themselves followers of the way. I am the way, Jesus said. His answer is clear in what he wants. I want to look up. Your faith has made you saved. And there was no warning from Jesus about, don't go back, fall back on your sin life. None of that. Because Bartimaeus immediately begins to follow Jesus and take a new pathway. And Peter in Matthew 14, he says this, they see Jesus walking on the water, and Peter yells to Jesus and says, look, if it's you, Lord, command me to come and on the water. And he said, come. And when Peter came down out of the boat, he walked on the water going to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous and he was afraid, and of course it's in the middle of a storm, and he was afraid, and he begins to sink. And he cries out, Lord, save me. And of course, Jesus stretches out his hand and he saves Peter. And he said, oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? You are actually walking on the water. As long as you keep your eyes on Jesus, see, it's not about looking at the storm. Peter looked at the storm and he began to sink. But if he had kept his eyes on Jesus, he wouldn't, because that filter, the filter of Jesus, helps him walk on the water. The storm or Jesus can affect how you see things. You're either in the storm or you're looking at Jesus. One increases our faith and the other diminishes it. But also the filter we use can affect our view. Sometimes we view life through a filter of grief or illness or physical infirmity or financial problems or education, maybe lack of education or relationships. And of course, those negative filters prevent us from getting a clear view of Christ. And we begin, our vision of Christ begins to fade. And of course, we then begin to sink. In John 21, I love this story. Simon Peter, and Jesus has been crucified, and he says, I'm going fishing. Now that doesn't mean he's just going to go sit on the canal and drop a line in the water. It means he's going back to commercial fishing. That's what Peter was a commercial fisherman. So some of the boys come and join him out on the Sea of Galilee, and they catch nothing. And when in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore and he yelled to them, have you caught anything? Well, of course they hadn't. And the answer, and he said to them, take your nets and put them on the other side of the boat. And of course the nets filled to practically can't even move the boat. Well, the first scenario is them looking through the lens of the crucifixion. The crucifixion, Jesus is dead, our ministry is over. The second way to see things was when the repetition of the miracle that Jesus had performed on the lake by filling the nets, and now they're looking through the eyes of the miraculous and the resurrection. Totally different way to see things. You can see things that the ministry over, Jesus is dead, or ministry is just beginning, Jesus has risen from the dead. So it just depends which lens you look through to determine how your life's going to be. Keep your eyes and your lens